Okay, so here we're doing Algebra 1, page 1101. We're going to do page 18 through 23. This is going to feel like a lot, but page 17 and 18 is just kind of prepping you for 19 and 22 and 23. So it is 5 pages, but the information is essentially the same in all of them. All right, so we're talking about finding the least common multiple. How do you find the least common multiple? So what is the smallest number between 3, 4, 8, and 12 that all three of them will go into? Well, the first thing that you do naturally is you look at your numbers that are there. 3 goes into 12, 4 goes into 12, but 8 does not go into 12. So what's the next number up that we would look at? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 12, and I'm going to say 12 times 2 is 24. Do the rest of these numbers go into 24? Well, the answer to that is yes, they do. So technically, you could learn it this way. The book teaches it another way, so I'm going to show you the way that the book teaches it, okay? But if you can look at it and go, the least number that will divide into all of these numbers is this, and then you can look at letters and you can do it the same way, then by all means, do that. But I'm going to show you the way that they teach it. That way, maybe, hopefully, it will make sense to you, okay? So what they do is they say that your number one step is to find the prime factor of each term. Okay, so what are prime numbers? Prime numbers are numbers that multiply by or are only divisible by them and themselves. So 2 is you only multiply 1 times 2 to get 2. 3, you only multiply 1 times 3 to get 3. Nothing else multiplies. 7, you can only get 7 by multiplying 1 and 7. Okay, and so on. So I skipped 5. But anyway, so that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to start with 3. Well, the only prime factor of 3 is 3. Okay, so we're going to move on to 4. We're going to say, what are prime factors of 4? Well, 2. 2 goes into 4 how many times? 2 times. That's it. We're done. Okay, so then I'm going to look at 8. Prime factors of 8, 2. That gives me 4. And then 2 again. And that gives me another 2. Okay, and then I'm going to go to 12. I'm going to do the same thing. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Divided by 2 is 3. All right. All right, so step 2, after I found my prime factors of each number, is to list each prime factor, the maximum number of times it occurs as a factor in one term, okay? So we have that 2 shows up 2 times here, shows up 3 times here, and it shows up 2 times here. So the maximum number that it shows up is 2 times. And then 3 shows up 1 time there and 1 time there. So the maximum number of times it shows up is 1. So now what you do is you multiply those 4 numbers together. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 times 3 is 24. And that is your answer to number 1. I realize that seems to be a lot of work just to get to 24, but this method helps. I'm going to erase this. All right, so your answer here is 24. This helps when you get to number 2, where you have a 6, a 9, and a 14. Well, what is the least common multiple between all three of those? Yes, I could take the number 14 and I could multiply it until I come up with a number that is divisible by all three of those. Or I could do the method of finding the prime numbers. So 2 and 6. That's going to give me 3. That's my prime numbers. 9, I'm going to go with 3 because 2 is not divisible. That's my prime numbers. And then 14, I'm going to do 2, which gives me 7. All right, so I'm going to list them the maximum number of times that they appear in each one. So my first one is a 2. It appears one time in 2 different ones. So 2. The next one is 3. It appears one time there. It appears 2 times there. So I'm going to do it twice. 3 times 3. And then the last one is a 7. So now I'm going to do 2 times 3 times 3 times 7. And that gives me 126. Now, how many of you knew off the top of your head that 126 and 9 would divide into each other? I mean, I didn't. I stopped after 12 when I'm multiplying 9, which would give me 108. After that, I have to think about it a little bit harder. This right here took me a minute to do. So it's essentially just easier to do it this way when you're having to deal with bigger numbers. All right, so I gave you the answer to number 2. Wasn't even planning on it. All right, so let's go over here. I'm going to erase what I've done here because kind of feeds into to number 3. Okay, so here we're going to write out our factors here of each one of these. Okay, so in the first one I have A times C. The second one I have A times C times C. And then the third one I just have 6 times A times A. All right, so I'm writing down the maximum number of times that they show up in any one factor. So in this one, the A shows up twice. It only shows up once there and once there. So I'm going to have A squared because A times A is A squared. All right, and then I have a C, 1 there, 2 there, 1 there. So the maximum number of times it shows up in any one term is twice. That's in that second one. All right, and then the other one is 6, and it shows up one time in the first one, and then that's it. So 6. Okay, so you could have also done that 3 and 2, and then 3 times 2 is 6, but that's besides the point. If you did it like by this method up here that I just showed you, because technically you would divide that by 2, and it would give you 3. And then you do 2 times 3, which gives you 6. But we know the factors of 6, and I didn't have to do that. All right, so this right here is going to be your least common multiple for a square C, AC square, and 6AC. Now, some of you could have looked at that, figured it out, and been done. Some of you could not, so we wrote it out. All right, so now we're going to go over here to the number 5. Okay, we're going to skip number 4 because it's practically the same as number 3. They just changed it around a little bit. But it's basically the same thing. So you should be able to do number 4 by yourself. So number 5, I'm going to factor this out. What is that? It's a difference of 2 binomials. You should be able to look at that and recognize that by now. It's separated by a negative sign, and I can take the square root of both of those. That should be just like second nature to you at this point. You should be able to figure it out just by looking at it. So A plus B, A minus B. The factor of A minus B is A minus B. And 5A plus B is already factored out. So I'm going to put it in the maximum number of times that it shows up in any one term. Well, in these, A plus B shows up one time, A minus B shows up one time, and 5 shows up one time. So my least common multiple between all of these is 5 times A plus B times A minus B. Okay? So I'm doing number 6 and 7 just because this is a little bit more complicated. And they only gave you 3, and all 3 of them are very different. So I felt like I needed to work these out for you individually, just to make sure that you understand it. I don't felt like doing one was not enough. So first thing I'm going to do is factor this out. My common factor is x. So I factor out my x, which leaves me with x minus 1. And in this one, again, it's separated by a negative sign. And I could take the square root of both of those. So that is a difference of 2 binomials. So it separates out into x minus 1 times x plus 1. So I'm going to write them down for didn't circle that. Every time the term shows up, I'm going to write the maximum amount that it does. So I have an x right there, shows up 1 time, I'm going to write it 1 time. I have x minus 1, that one has an x minus 1, so x minus 1. And then x plus 1. Those show up 1 time in each factoring. All right, so then number 7. So number 7 is our favorite thing to do ever, and that is the factoring of the trinomials. So I'm going to go ahead and write my parentheses down. This is just works better for me. Some people don't like to do that because then everything's not even. Whatever you want to do. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that second sign. That second sign is a positive. That tells me that my signs in my binomials that I'm about to create are the same. I'm going to look at that first sign. It's a negative, which tells me that my 2 signs are negative. Okay. My last term here is a 1. Well, the only factors of 1 are 1. So I'm going to go ahead and throw those in there. And then here, I'm going to factor out 4. Well, that's 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Well, which one of those when added together are going to give me 4? Well, that's obviously 2 and 2. I'm multiplying by 1, so it doesn't matter where they go. Plus, they're the same, so my signs are the same, so none of that matters. I don't have to worry about where I'm putting things. All right, so I have a 2x minus 1 and a 2x minus 1. Now let's factor this one out. All right, so I'm going to do my parentheses. First thing I'm going to look at is that second sign, and it's a negative. That tells me that my signs are opposite. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is get my factors of my first and last term. Okay, and then you just figure out which one when multiplied together, and then you subtract is going to give me a positive 4. Remember, you need a positive 4. All right, well, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 1 is 11, so that's not right. 4 times 1 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. And 4 minus 3 is 1. So that's not it. So it's not 4 and 1. But 2 and 2, we could do 2 times 3 is 6. And 2 times 1 is 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. So 2x, 2x. Now which one needs to be positive of my 3 and my 1? And which one needs to be negative? Well, my sign is a positive, so my bigger number needs to be positive. 3 and 1. All right. Now, what is the least common multiple between these two trinomials? Well, 2x minus 1 and 2x minus 1, that shows up 2 times in the first one, and it shows up 1 time in the second one. So 2x minus 1, 2x minus 1. And then 2x plus 3 shows up 1 time. 2x plus 3. You can write it this way, or you can write it this way. Both are the same. Okay. Hope we understand that, because we're going to move on to the next. All right, so again, starting out with the basics. What is my least common multiple between all 3 of these? Well, if I do the steps that it told me to, I'm going to find my prime factors. Prime factor of 2 is 2. Prime factor of 3 is 3. Prime factor of 4 is 2 twice. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12. So 12 is my least common multiple. All right, so 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so then I have 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 over 12. Okay, so skip down there to number 3. Number 2 is basically the same thing as what I just did. I just added a couple of things in the top. But I'm going to skip to number 3. So number 3, what is my least common multiple between A and B? And that is AB. So AB. AB divided by A leaves me with a B. And AB divided by B leaves me with an A. So my answer is A plus B over AB. This is not my final answer. That is not correct. It is not in the correct order. Always alphabetical order first. This is the final answer. All right. Going down to number 4. So what is my least common multiple between 4A and 5A? That is 20A. Okay, so 20A divided by 4A is 5. 5 times 7 is 35x. And then 20A divided by 5A leaves me with 4. 4 times 3 is 12x. And then I have 35x minus 12x all over 20A, which gives me 23x over 20A. You cannot reduce, you can't make this a mixed number. It doesn't work that way when you're dealing with the algebraic. That is your final answer. If that was just numbers, then you would change it to a mixed number, but you don't do that in this situation. All right, and then number 5, what is my least common multiple between B squared and B? I hope that you said B squared. All right, so B squared divided by B squared is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. And B squared divided by B is B. And 3 times B is 3B. My final answer will be 3B plus 2 over B squared. Okay, so we're going to move on to page 22. All right, so starting right here on page 22, you notice that I'm only doing 2 of these. If you did not understand what we just did over on page 20, you need to stop and go back and watch that again. Understanding what we just did, how we found our lowest common multiple between a denominator and then multiplying it by your numerator and getting your answer. If you did not understand that, you need to stop what you're doing, rewind the video, and go back. Because if you didn't understand that, you're not going to understand this and you're not going to get it right. Okay? Stop and rewind if you need to. All right, so number 1, What is my least common multiple between a plus b, a minus b, and a squared minus b squared? You should be able to look at a squared minus b squared and know that that is a minus b times a plus b. So what is my least common multiple? It's a minus b times a plus b. Okay? So a minus b times a plus b goes into, divided by a plus b, leaves me with a minus b, a plus b. So I'm going to write that in, a minus b. All right, now a minus b times a plus b divided by a minus b leaves me with a plus b. Okay, and then a minus b times a plus b divided by a minus b, a plus b leaves me with 5. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my parentheses up here in this numerator. So I have a minus b plus 2a plus 2b plus 5 all over a minus b, a plus b. Okay, so I'm going to move over here for my final answer just so I don't get into my problem number 2. So I'm just combining like terms, a and 2a. That gives me 3a. Negative b plus 2b gives me positive b. And then the last thing is the 5. And that's all over a minus b, a plus b. If you wrote the a squared minus b squared, that's the same thing. That's not wrong. Okay, so now going down here to number 2. What is my least common multiple between all three of these terms? 3xy z squared, xyz, and 3z squared. Okay, so I have a 3 that shows up in 2 of these. So I know one of them is going to be a 3. I have an x here, and I have an x here. Don't have anything here. So I know an x. And then I have a y here, and a y here. I don't have a y in that third one. So I'm going to put my y. And then I have a z squared, a z, and a z squared. Well, what is the highest number of times that z shows up? Twice. So my least common multiple is z squared. All right, so 3xyz squared divided by 3xyz squared gives me 1. So that's a 4. All right, and then 3xyz squared divided by xyz squared leaves me with 3z times 2. And then 3xyz squared divided by 3z squared is going to leave me with xy of 2xy. Now I'm going to get rid of those parentheses. Coming over here to back to the beginning. 4 plus 3z times 2, 6z minus 2xy all over 3xyz squared. This is not correct because it is not in the correct order. So you have to rewrite this and you have to put it in the correct order. Why? Because math says so. So negative 2xy plus 6z plus 4 all over 3xyz squared. Again, if this does not make sense, stop the video, rewind it a little bit, and make sure that you understand how to come up with your least common multiple and then how you multiply it out. If you just took the 3xyz squared and multiplied it by 4 and you got 12xyz square over 3xyz square, then all you're going to do from here is reduce that. So the x's go away, the y's go away, the z goes away. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 12 four times. So once you do that and you get your lowest, you reduce your fraction, it will come out to be the same, but it's just better to do it before doing all that. All right, number 5 over on page 23. All right, so what is my least common multiple between 3 and 5? That is 15. All right, so 15 goes into 3, or 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times b plus 3. And then 15 goes into 5 how many times? It goes into 5 3 times. So 3 times b minus 2. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the fraction, and I'm going to put everything over one denominator. Just going to combine all of that. All right, so 5 times b is 5b. 5 times positive 3 is positive 15. Have a minus sign there. So negative 3 times b is negative 3b. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Combine my like terms. 5b minus 3b is 2b. And positive 15 plus 6, positive 21, all over 15. Okay. Moving down to number 7. Forget how many of these I did. All right, so number 7. What is my least common multiple between all of these? Okay, so if you did the little factoring thing, then you would have a 2, and then you have 4, 2, and a 2, and you have 6, and you got 2 and 3. So the most times that it appears is 3, 2, and 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. So my least common between all three of those is 12. So I'm going to write 12. Okay, so then I have an A, but I don't have an A in that one. So just one A. Got a B, so just one B, and then a C and a C, so just one C. So 12 ABC. All right, so 6 ABC divided by, 12 ABC divided by 6 AB is going to leave me with 2C. 12 ABC divided by 2 AC is going to give me 6B, A minus 2C. And 12 ABC divided by 4 BC is 3A and 2B minus 3C. All right. So now I'm going to get rid of these parentheses, and I'm going to add I'm going to put everything on top of one denominator. Okay, so 2C times 2A gives me 4AC. 2C times negative 3B gives me negative BC. Negative 6b times a is negative 6ab. Negative 6 times negative 2c gives me positive 12bc. And then negative 3a times 2b is negative 6ab. Negative 3a times negative 3c is positive 9ac. Okay, and then that's all over 12abc. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So my first one is an AC, and then I have an AC down here on the end. Are there any other ACs? There's not. Okay, so that's positive 4 and a positive 9, which gives me positive 13 AC. Here I have a negative BC, and I have a positive. So negative 6 plus 12. Remember, I'm just going to subtract them. 12 minus 6 is 6. And I'm going to put whatever the sign is of my bigger number. So positive 6BC. And then I have negative AB and negative AB. So negative 6. And negative 6 is negative 12AB. All over 12ABC. So now the question is, how do I arrange these in the correct order? It is still alphabetical. So A is your first letter of the alphabet. B is second. So negative 12AB goes first. Got rid of that one. Now next I have an AC and I have a BC. Well, A is still the first letter of the alphabet, so it's going to go second. That one goes away. Leaves me with the positive 6BC all over 12ABC. And that is your final answer. Really, really, really hope that this makes sense. All right, so I'm going to factor this out. We're skipping down to number 9. Number 8 is very simple. You should be able to get it fairly quickly. So my least common multiple between these is going to be the a plus 1 times a minus 1. So a plus 1, a minus 1, and a plus 1, a minus 1. And they're separated by a negative. All right, so a plus 1, a minus 1 divided by a minus 1 leaves me with a plus 1. So I have a times a plus 1. And then here, they just cancel. And it leaves me with the 3 on top. So get rid of my parentheses. A times a is a squared. A times 1 is positive a. And then I have negative 3 all over a plus 1, a minus 1. And that is your final answer. If you're asking why you don't factor out that trinomial that you got right there, it's because you cannot. Because your factors of 3 are 3 and 1, and your factors of 1 are 1 and 1. 3 times 1 is 3, 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 minus 1 is 2. So it doesn't factor to give you a 1. All right, so going down to number 10, let's find our least common multiple between 12 and 10. So if you do your little thing, you have 12, and you start with a prime number, which is 2. That gives you 6. 2. That gives you 3. So you're done. So go to 10. 2. That gives you 5. So 5 appears one time. 3 appears one time. And your 2 appears 2 times. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And 12 times 5 is 60. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so I know that 60 is my least common multiple between these. So what is my other least common multiple? I have a b squared and a b. So b squared, because that's the highest times that it appears. And then x and x squared. So x squared. Okay. So now I'm just going to divide 60 b squared x squared divided by 12 b squared x. So 60 divided by 12 is 5. B squared divided by b is 1. X squared divided by x is x. Okay. And then 60 divided by b squared x. 60 goes into 10 how many times? 6. B squared divided by b is b. And x squared divided by x squared is 1. 2b plus x. So get rid of the parentheses. 5x times b gives me 5bx. I'm going to erase that and write it again because I did not like it. 5bx. 5x times negative 2x gives me negative 10x squared. I'm going to go ahead and put all of this over one denominator as well. Okay, so negative 6b times 2b is negative 12b squared. And negative 6b times x is negative 6bx. So here I'm going to combine like terms. So my only like term is the bx's, 5bx and negative 6bx. So those are the only ones that I'm going to add / subtract together. And as I'm rewriting this, I'm going to go ahead and put my 12b squared over in the front. So negative 12b squared, because that's where it belongs. First letter of the alphabet, or it's first in this case. Go ahead and write my denominator down. All right, so I got rid of that. So what's next? 5bx and negative 6bx. I'm going to subtract those. That's going to give me 1. I'm going to take the sign of what is there of my bigger number, which is a negative. So negative bx. And then that's done. And that's done. Leaving me with negative 10x squared. And this is going to be your final answer. You can't factor this out anymore. There's no factors of 12 and 10 when multiplied together. And subtracted would give you negative 1. And then also that sign right there is negative. And, oh no, that doesn't matter. I'm sorry. That was a dumb statement. Excuse me. It's late. I'm tired. All right. So this is done. This is finished. I don't have any other problems to do for you. I did almost all of them on page 23. So I hope that you understand finding your common factor and then putting it into your problem just as if it were basic numerical numbers. If you have any questions, let me know.